Welcome back to another Rose City Reptiles video. You guys, we have finally done it. I got the questions in from the Brumation video, and today what I'm going to be doing is throwing those questions together. I'm going to read each question individually. The comment will pop up on the screen so you guys can see the question, see who asked it, and I'm going to do my best at providing good information from experience that I've had and answering those questions for you guys. So stick around for the video. Thank you to everyone who asked those questions. You know, it's good to ask questions. Smart people ask questions. And so yeah, let's jump on into it. Now this video took a while to throw together and, you know, answer all these questions. So, you know, you can help me out and show your appreciation by watching the entire video, and also maybe you'll learn a thing or two. And let's brumate these tegus together. And also, I'm working on a video that kind of goes through like my top 10 most used items, the items that I could not live without that make my job much easier when taking care of all these reptiles. And I'm gonna start putting those items in the description of every video. So you've noticed I have a few items down there, but just gives y'all something else to look at. Once you're done watching this video, you can look at that description and see what items that I think are really helpful and that are well made. Every item on that list will be something that I personally have had and have used, and that has worked out well for me. So feel free to check out that list that I've started, and I'm definitely going to be adding more to it. Okay, so I went through and I have screenshot every single question on the Brumation video, and so we're just gonna, I have them here on my phone, and I'm gonna just start reading them. And like I said, they'll pop up on the screen so everyone can read along. But this first question that we're gonna go over says, what are your temps day and night during the cold season? One thing I'm worried about is if they don't brumate, they don't breed. But I have read somewhere that they still breed even without brumation. I live in a legit tropical country. We do have a cold season during December to February, but it's not really that cold. That is a great question. Let's cover the first one. It is, what are your temperatures day and night? Well, I actually keep mine at a very consistent temperature. So you have to think, in most areas, if you burrow down about 4 feet, that is your average temperature for the year. Okay, does that make sense? So if you guys go out right now and you dig a hole 4 foot down and you test the temperature of that soil 4 feet down, that's gonna be the average temperature of your area for the year, okay? So when tegus burrow down, that's what they're doing. They are going into a consistent temperature, okay? There's not fluctuation from day to night when you're 4 feet down. Now, not all of us can provide 4 feet of substrate in a perfect environment. So the goal is to provide a very consistent temperature for them when they're brumating. My goal, and I think everyone's goal, should be under 70 degrees, okay? So I keep mine at mid 60s, 60 to 65, somewhere around there. And that does a good job at, brumating them. But you don't have to worry about daytime temperatures, nighttime temperatures, because they're burrowed, and so they're not getting much fluctuation. So that's the goal, is consistent temperatures throughout brumation. Okay, so that's the first question. And then next he said, oh, and then will they breed if they brumate or not? The answer to that is yes, they can still breed if they do not brumate. So if they stay awake, they can still breed, but your chances are greatly diminished. So they may not ovulate, they may not get that trigger, response from their environment that it is time to breed. So if you have goals to breed your tegus, then definitely I recommend brumating them. And you wrote that you live in a legit tropical country. Well, then brumation should be easier for you. So go off of your seasons, not mine. So when winter's coming for you and it starts to cool down, and if you notice your tegus slowing down, then go ahead and brumate them. So, okay, that's the first question. Okay, so our next question he wrote, I have a 2 or 3 month old and 3 yearlings. So how would I go about it and only one is slowing down? He comes out like every 3 or 4 days. So should I stop feeding him or wait till he rejects the food? When I feed him, he doesn't eat as much as he normally does, and the other 3 are still active and up every day. Okay, so I would need a little clarification. You know, do you have all of them together, or are they in individual enclosures? We're going to answer this like they're together because I believe that's what he's trying to say. Definitely, so babies will often do like a very semi-brumation. You know, they'll slow down but they'll still be eating. That's fine. Keep your babies awake and to continue feeding them as long as they are not going down permanently. Some babies will even go down permanently for just a couple weeks, and that's okay. I mean, just observe your Tegu, know what's normal for them so you can pick up on those brumation cues that they're giving you and respond correctly. If they are going down for what seems like a couple weeks, stop feeding. That's totally fun to do. Now, if you have a bunch of Tegus together, that's gonna complicate things a bit. What you can do is take the one that's brumating and wanting to go down and put them in a bin. You can get, you know, any type of container, put some hay in there. I showed you kind of how I do that in brumation video number 1, which you saw. So yeah, you can separate it, put it in a bin, and keep it cool for a little bit and let it brumate, and then add them back to the colony. Once you hear him, you'll hear them in the containers waking up. They'll start digging at the sides, and you will know that they are ready to get up, and then you can add them back into your enclosure with the other Tegus. So that is kind of how I would handle that. Hopefully that answers your question. All right, and our next question is, at what age do you recommend for them to start brumation? There's not really an age that I recommend. What I recommend is that you observe your Tegu, and if they want to brumate, you let them. That is what I recommend. They can brumate their first year. I would say it's probably about 50-50. Maybe more like 80% do not brumate, somewhere around there, and only like 20 to 50% do brumate. So don't be surprised if your Tegu, its first year, does not brumate. That is totally fine. Let it stay awake and feed it and let it get its gains. That is okay. So, but you know, just observe them. If they want to brumate the first year, that's fine as well. How long do they normally brumate? Now, that can depend on the area that you live. But on average, I would say 3 to anywhere from 2 months to 9 months. So that's a big variable. You will learn what's normal for your animal and for your area. So for me, mine typically go down in October, and then we wake up in February. So that's what's average for me here, but that may be different for someone else. So again, trust your animals, learn their behavior. And then do we ever wake them up? So I like to leave mine be, but I do a couple times during brumation. I will go in there and just check on them, and I'm always pleasantly surprised by how well they're doing and how natural this is for them. So it is totally normal to be worried about your Tegus. I am the worst at that. I'm always like, are they doing okay? You know, like just stressing, especially like my first few years doing this. You really worry because it's just so unnatural for us as mammals to see an animal not eat or drink for such a long period of time. Like, that is not natural. Like, that feels like it's gonna die. But these are cold-blooded animals. This is an incredible thing. One of the most amazing things about Tegus, even though it's sad for us, but it is an incredible thing that they can do that just blows my mind every year. How well they sustain during their brumation. So feel free to check on them. I wouldn't do it daily for sure, but maybe weekly, do a quick check, and just to calm yourself down. It's mainly for you, not for the Tegu, so go ahead and check on them. And our next question is, do you need to brumate your Tegu if it's a pet? If this is the case, how do you keep them up? Okay, so we talked about earlier how brumating does increase your chances greatly for breeding, but if it's a pet, you still want to do what's best for your Tegu, because that's our job as pet owners. So if your Tegu is wanting to brumate, just let them brumate. I know you'll miss them, but my recommendation is have another reptile maybe that doesn't brumate during the winter. So there's some options there, or have more than one Tegu. I don't know who would do something like that. So, so yeah, just do what the Tegu wants to do. Let it kind of take the lead. If the Tegu wants to go down, let him go down and provide what he needs. And then, if this is the case, how do you keep them up? So there is a way to keep them up. I don't recommend it unless a veterinarian or someone has intervened and said that that animal cannot go down safely. If that's the case, then it's gonna be manual. You're gonna be waking your Tegu up, bumping the temperatures up higher, and keeping them awake that way. So that's an option, but I don't recommend it unless a veterinarian has said that it needs to be done. Okay, I hope you guys are enjoying this. I'm actually enjoying interacting with you guys a little bit in this video, so this is kind of cool. So let me know in the comments if you like this, or by giving this video a thumbs up. You know, if I get 100 thumbs up, then I know people really enjoy this style of video. Then our next question is, do juvenile Tegus brumate as well? Yes, they can. I think we've mentioned that earlier. Any age Tegu can brumate. Just watch your animals, you know, and see if they want to, and, you know, trust them. And then another question is, how long is brumation? I think we've covered that already in this video. So, you know, it can vary from 2 months to 9 months. So, I mean, I have Jasmine. You guys know Jasmine. She brumates a long time. I mean, she went down early let me think. I mean, it's at least a month longer than everyone else. I mean, she's been down for a while. So yeah. So these Tegus, just like us, we're all individuals. So Tegus are as well. Some are going to brumate longer, some are shorter, even when they're given the exact same parameters. So just comes down to the individual there. Okay, the next question is some really good ones that I haven't even thought of myself. But it says, thank you for this. I've been anxious about my little guys. He's starting to slow down. I just want to make sure I handle this season correctly. Great job for, you know, being proactive and getting your questions answered. Great. Number one is humidity as important during brumation? So is it as important? No, it is not. So they do not shed while they're brumating. There is really cool reason for this. A lot of Tegus will get what we call a winter coat or a winter shed. It's like a thicker shed layer that they get during this time of the year. And, you know, I love to ask myself why and try to figure things out. And to me, it just makes sense. That's kind of like their insulation. That's doing the work for them, trying to keep them warm during winter. And also, I think that thicker shed can also protect them from, you know, if there's any like carnivorous insects or things like that down in the ground with them, it'd be harder for them to get through it. So, I don't know, maybe there's some other reasons why, but to answer the question, no, humidity is not as important. So, you don't really have to worry about that at all. So, my only recommendation is do not keep them wet at all. Like, keep it dry. Dry is better than wet, for sure. So, you can run into some serious health issues, skin issues, if you keep the substrate wet while they're brumating. And then his second question was, does noise affect them during brumation? The reason I asked, we were doing renovations to our home. That is a fantastic question that I really haven't put a whole lot of thought into it. But when I was reading that, you know, I was thinking about it, and for an easy answer, I would say no. But of course that has its limitations. So I would not want to run a jackhammer right next to a brumating Tegu. So I would definitely pay some attention to it. If you can close some doors and make it as quiet as possible, maybe put a blanket over the tote or something to kind of deafen the sound down while you're working, that would probably be a good idea. But once they're deep asleep, you don't have to worry about it too much. So hopefully that answers your questions. Our next question is a very common question, so let's get it cleared up. It says, is it true that if they don't brumate the first year, that they end up as larger adults? So, a lot of people think that if they don't brumate, then they're going to be bigger than if they do brumate in the long run. So hopefully that makes sense. I understand what you're trying to ask there. The question to that is no, not at all, if proper care is given to your tegus. So I can have a 1-year-old tegu that's not much bigger than a hatchling and it be perfectly healthy, and that's normal. That is okay. Some people freak out about that and they're like, I just rescued this 1-year-old tegu and the other owners must have been horrible. That's not true. The tegu probably just brumated. Like, it's okay. So you don't have to worry about that at all. There is huge size differences in tegus that brumate or don't brumate their first year, and people get worried about that, but you don't have to worry about it if you give them proper care. Your tegu, once it wakes up from brumation, it's insane how fast they grow. So February rolls around, March, it'll wake up, you feed it, and it's gonna explode in size, so you don't have to worry about that. Is brumation different depending on where you live? Example, I'm in Chicago and winters last long sometimes, and was wondering if that can affect the duration. It absolutely can affect the duration. Where you live can really affect brumation for sure. So keep that in mind. You know, your tegu in Chicago probably started slowing down a month ago. But on the other hand, tegus are not so simple. It can affect it, but also it may not. So again, you just have to know what's normal for your tegu and you know, respond to your tegu. So yes, it can affect it, but it also might not. So yeah, there's no like set in rule stone. But most of the time I would say it does affect the tegu. So keep that in mind when your tegu is brumating. Next question, really good question. Really glad you are doing this series. Just got my first tegu and she has been down for a couple of weeks. It's kind of sucks when you get a brand new tegu and then it goes down, but it's part of it. We'll be checking on her this week. She definitely could sense the pressure changing here in VA. I still have the lights on, the timer, but just for a shorter period now. Should I turn everything off completely while she is in brumation? Very good idea to make the lights be on a shorter duration to mimic her behavior. Smart, I can tell you're an experienced keeper. It would be fine to turn everything off and leave it dark because she's not really using it at all, but it also wouldn't hurt to keep it on. So that's up to you. For me, save money on electricity and just shut it down. So, but great question, and you're responding to your tegu really well. A lot of times when we get tegus at this time of the year, it can trigger a brumation. So if, let's say you guys ordered a baby from me today, none of the babies are brumating, or I have a couple slowing down, but most of them are not brumating right now. But when I mail it to you, that could trigger a brumation response paired with the, you know, the feelings associated with moving to a new home. You know, that can be kind of scary for a young tegu. And so that can trigger a response to brumate. But what I see happen a lot is that these babies, when I ship them this time of the year, they might do a really quick 1 to 2 week brumation, then wake up and start eating. So yeah, just watch your tegu. All right, this question is from a friend of mine. Let's see what he had to say. It says, if you have a tegu that never turns down a meal and then out of nowhere goes down for brumation early, its first or second year, what would you do? Could you wake it up and try to keep it awake until it poops, or just trust the tegu and pray? So that's a good question, and I have seen that happen. Usually when that does happen, it's with a tegu on its first brumation. Yeah, I wouldn't let my tegu brumate on a full stomach. So like if it ate a big meal on let's say Wednesday, it ate a huge meal, and Thursday it just like went down and was down for several days, I would definitely keep an eye on that and not allow it to stay down for very long. That would be rare, and tegus are typically pretty smart and they don't do that. Instincts play a huge role in brumation, and instincts tell them, you know, that they would need to digest that food before going to sleep. So what I would do is keep my lights on, keep the enclosure warm. Most of our enclosures are insulated, at least mine are, and so that basking light heats up the whole enclosure. I mean, definitely you have a cool end and a hot end, but it keeps it above 70 degrees. And so I would do that, keep the lights on, and you know, watch him until he poops, or what's a better way to say that? He passes a stool. And so that's what I would do. Definitely keep your lights on, keep it warm. And then once he passes the stool, then you can full on brumate him. So you do not want to brumate them on a full stomach. That can lead to a disaster. So good question. And our next question is, my Tegu digs herself into the bedding but comes out every day and stays out all day and eats. How can or when can you tell when brumation starts for sure? Is it when they go down for more than a day or two? So that's a great question, and brumation is really a combination of things. Appetite, lethargic, like sometimes they are acting kind of lethargic, so you just have to monitor their behavior and know what's normal for them. Okay, got that adjusted. It does not sound like your Tegu is in brumation, and not all Tegus brumate. So just continue to watch her behavior. If she's getting up every day and she's active for a lot of the day and still eating, then she's not brumating right now. So just continue to watch her. She may not brumate at all. She may stay up all winter long, and that's totally fine. Like that's not unhealthy or anything. That's great. And then you get to enjoy your Tegu all year. And that may be her norm. Some Tegus don't brumate. So just continue to watch her, keep everything the same. And if she starts slowing down, then you start slowing down as well, pulling off the food a bit and seeing what she does. So great question. Okay, we have another great question here. It says, yes, the video I was waiting for. Thank you so much. You are so welcome. I'm happy to do this. Question number 1, when do I stop feeding them? Like I've said a few times in this video, you have to just observe them and know what's normal for them and know when they're starting to slow down. So if you notice that they're slowing down, then pull the food off. Question number 2, once in brumation, what temperature should I keep the ambient at? Great question. Under 70 degrees is what I recommend for a Tegu that's brumating. So under 70 degrees. You'd be surprised if you keep your house at 70, or you know, I think 70 is a pretty common temperature to keep it at during winter. I don't know, at least in Texas. You'd be surprised. I bet there's a cool spot in your home. For us, it's in the master bedroom closet. It stays 60 degrees in there throughout the whole year. I'm lucky there. But some of you go around with your temperature guns. If you don't have a temperature gun, where's mine? Mine's over there. Y'all know what I'm talking about. If you don't have one, get one. Seriously, get one. Like, go down in the description, click that link, and go buy one. They're cheap, and they are a 100% must-have, #1 item that you need as a reptile owner. So get one, go out through your house, find closets, whatever, find a cool area, and that's where you can keep your Tegu. But to just answer the question, under 70 degrees works perfectly. And if you're keeping them in their enclosure, a lot of the times underneath that substrate, it stays nice and cool. So in their enclosure is also a wonderful place to keep your Tegu when they're brumating. Just check your temps, but I bet it'll be really good. All right, we've got another awesome question. This one says, great info. When Tegus wake up, how many days do you wait before you know for sure that they're awake for good? What a good question. I get that question a lot. So what I do, oh, and then this ties into the second part, so I'll go ahead and read it. Then, how long before you feed them? So when my Tegus wake up, I keep them awake for a week before I offer food. By that point, you will know if your Tegu is awake or not. They wake up ready to eat. When they're ready to eat like that, they're good. They're gonna be awake. When you have them in their enclosure and you're brumating them and there, a lot of times they'll wake up, go back to sleep, wake, you know, you'll see them get up here and there. When that's the case, don't feed. I believe you'll know when. You know what's normal for your Tegu, you'll see their behavior, you'll know when they are up and hungry. When they're up and hungry like that, respond to them, and that's time to feed them. So if they wake up for one day and they look drowsy and they're just kind of laying around, don't feed on that day. They're going to go back down. They're not awake yet. So you got to use some common sense. You got to use, know kind of what your weather's like and respond to your Tegu accordingly. So another tip, this is just like a bonus tip. If your Tegu's been a little picky, and you're trying to switch them over to a different staple diet, like if you're trying to give them more dog food or crock diet and like do some different mixes, when they wake up from brumation, that's the best time to switch them over. So I never see Tegus refuse a meal after they wake up from brumation and they're up for good. So keep that in mind if you're wanting to try something new or get your picky Tegu onto a new diet. So that can also help. Alright, so we've got some more questions here from Final Error. It says, does age affect how they brumate, or if they do at all? Yes, it does. Young Tegus will sometimes brumate for just a couple weeks or not at all, but they also could brumate the entire length just like an adult. So it comes down to the individual, but I would definitely say that age does affect brumation. Most Tegus under a year do not brumate. Then, do you take your Tegus to get checked for parasites before they go down? I heard it is good to get them checked before they do, or does feeding them thawed out food help lower or take out the chance to have parasites? No, not at all. You can take them to get checked for parasites, that's fine, but all Tegus have parasites, all humans have parasites. What you have to be careful for is that unhealthy balance of parasites. When the parasites are taking over, there's usually a reason to that, tied into husbandry, tied into temperatures, which is why you should have a temperature gun. Not you specifically, but I'm speaking to everybody. Feeding raw meats does not decrease the chance to have parasite, it increases the chance. So a lot of people don't think about that, but like buying grocery store meat, there's so many parasites in that, tons. That meat is sold for human consumption to be cooked. So there's certain FDA regulations that are kind of, that meat is passed through based upon the presumption that it's going to be cooked. So there is so many parasites and so many hands that touch that meat, but like a lot of people assume that that's a really safe meat to feed, but when in reality it would be much better to go get your meat from a farmer who, you get it fresh from him. So grocery store meat is definitely intended to be cooked to kill parasites, but Tegus can handle it with proper husbandry and proper temperatures that help them kill the bacteria inside of them by basking. That's a big reason why they bask, not only to digest the food, but to manage those parasites within their body. So I know that's a little bit more information than what you were asking. Let me read the question, make sure I answered it. So it is a good idea to get your Tegus checked for parasites, but man, it is so hard to find a good vet that can do that appropriately and effectively. So here's what happens most of the time. This is a little bit of a tangent, but good information. You're going to take your Tegu to a vet. The vet's going to find parasites in its stool because they're there. And he's then going to treat your Tegu for parasites. What that's going to do is going to wipe out their entire biome, their whole digestive. I mean, parasites play such an important role in our animals and in us personally. Antibiotics and all these different things that we do to treat parasites or health conditions really wipe out, all beneficial bacteria and parasites as well. So that's something I would be very careful about doing right before brumation, especially if your Tegu's wanting to go down. I could see that actually doing a lot of harm than good if your vet is uneducated about reptiles. So if you trust your vet and you have a very qualified vet, man, you're lucky. So they're a dime a dozen. They're kind of hard to find, but when you find one, treat them good, trust them. Definitely, I'm not a vet. I have a vet that I go to and that I trust. I'm lucky. So I suggest you guys find one as well, but it can be hard because you naturally want to trust your vet, but that's not always the best thing. So, sorry, I don't know if I can answer that question for sure. I think I've answered it the best I can. Have you had a Tegu who didn't want to go down or stayed up much longer than normal? Absolutely, all the time. I have some that want to stay up longer, and I have some that go down 2 months early. So, and it works the same way with waking up. Some wake up early, and I just do my best to respond to the Tegu. How was your first time dealing with brumation, and what was your biggest worry or pet peeve about brumation? Good question. First time, I'm a worrier, so I definitely worried a lot about the Tegu, and I checked on them way more than I should have. And my biggest pet peeve about brumation, and a lot of you are going to agree with this, is the crazy weather we get. So it would be in Texas, and this is true for a lot of areas. It's I want to just punch the weather sometimes. So I get frustrated thinking about it. We'll have like super cool days, like today in Texas, or this weekend it's been down into the 40s, and next week it's going to hit 90. That's very frustrating and confusing to Tegus, because in the wild, you know, like I said earlier, they're burrowed down 4 feet, and that consistent temperature is what I want to give them. So I used to bring the Tegus in and out all the time, and I stopped doing that. I kind of, when it gets cold, I just bring them in and brumate them, and then when it warms up, I put them back out. But I do have heated hides that can help with those cooler temperatures when I move them back out, and so that's helped a lot with that. But that's would be my biggest pet peeve, is the weather and how it can't decide what it wants to do. So yeah. So hope that answered that. Compared to your other reptiles, are Tegus easier or more difficult to deal with brumation? How are they different from others? Well, for one, they're different because they burrow. I think that's my only species that burrows for brumation. But once you get the hang of it, it's actually pretty simple. They really let you know when they're ready to go down, and it's not too bad. They're really tough species, and they do well. Final question. It isn't about brumation, but what got you into reptiles and made you want to start a business for them? How have reptiles changed your life? Is this where you saw yourself as a kid, and did family or friends support you with this business, or did they think this would have been a phase or a flop? Wow. Answering that, I'm gonna have to save that for another video. That's a big question, and I can truly say that reptiles have benefited to my life greatly, and yeah, can't really talk about this. I might cry. So, and then just to touch on a little bit, my family has been a huge supporter, and has I'm so thankful for them, especially once you guys hear about our new plans. So, good question. I'm gonna save that one. Okay, so back on track. That last question got me a little just thankful, really thankful. So let's move on. I have a 3-month-old black and white Chicoan. He comes out around 12 to 2, then goes back in his hide at 4 to 6. Could this be a sign of him getting ready to go down? He's still eating though. Any info would help. Okay, so he's coming out, he's eating, but he's treating the day as if it's shorter. So my question to you in response to that question would be, how long have you had the Tegu? And if you had him for, you know, a little bit of time, then you would know, is this normal behavior for him? So was he staying out for the full day before? So I'm gonna pretend like he was, like we've had that conversation and he was staying out for longer periods of time before, and then the answer would be absolutely yes, this is signs of him slowing down for brumation. So what you could do is start reducing the number of times you feed him, or stopping altogether, and see if he continues to just go down. So I would guess that yes, your 3-month-old black and white Chicoan is starting to go down for winter. But you can also keep things the same and keep feeding him and see what happens. It sounds like he's young and he's gonna do like that semi-brumation that I see a lot of babies do. So great question. Okay, our next one says, when we keep ours inside in an enclosure, do we turn off the lights on their enclosure during the brumation period if they show they have buried themselves? I would say yes, you can turn off your lights, that's totally fine. Keeping them on also works, so I'm not saying like one is definitely better than the other, but if they're buried down under the soil and you want to brumate them and cool them off, then you know, turn the lights off. I think that's makes sense to me. So part 2, will they go into brumation if kept inside in an enclosure? Will it hurt them if the heat does not go below 60 degrees for them to go onto brumation? So the first question is, will they go into brumation if kept in an enclosure? Yes, they will. Even inside, even when temperatures are consistent, they will still go down in for brumation. You know, most of them will. Will it hurt them if the heat does not go below 60? No, it doesn't have to go below 60. I would say it has to go below 70. So 70 or under is really when their metabolism slows down and their breathing slows down and everything just slows down tremendously, and that's what you want to achieve. If you keep them warm and they're trying to brumate, it puts them, I mean, to me, it puts them in a limbo, you know, like where they want to slow their metabolism down, but being cold-blooded, they're affected by their environment and they're staying warm. That way their metabolism's still going and their breathing is still going as if it's normal, but they're not eating, so that's when you're going to see weight loss and things like that. So you definitely want to cool them down below 70 and that will be fine. Doesn't have to be below 60. All right, let's move on to our next question. It says, thank you for all of your educational videos. You're welcome. It looks like there are a few questions about brumation for tegus at 2 or 3 months old. Our baby isn't really slowing down with their eating. Would this be something to be concerned about? Not at all. So just, if your baby's not slowing down, congratulations, just feed them and, you know, they'll be totally fine. All right, next question, lights on and off. Lights on or off. So you can turn them off if your tegu's brumating. Give water in tub or not. Yes, you can give water. Occasionally you will see your tegu wake up during brumation if you keep them in the enclosure and get a drink. If you have bioactive bugs, can you brumate in the enclosure, or are you worried about bugs eat your tegu? That's a good question, but you don't have to be worried about that at all. These bioactive bugs, they eat dead, decaying things, and your tegu is going to be alive and well. So no, I have brumated in an enclosure with springtails and isopods and a lot of other things and never had any problems. And also I've had tegus brumate outside and it's totally fine, so you don't have to worry about that. Really great question so far. If you guys are still here, do hashtag brumation together in the comments. Okay, I have a few questions. First, should you not mist them down so they stay hydrated? Also, how often do you check on them? So misting them down, it's okay to mist a little, but you do not want to make it wet. Imagine sitting in, you know, wet soil for a long time. It's not going to do any good. You really don't have to mist them at all. But I used to do it more back whenever I was super worried about them, but now I've come to realize that brumation is totally natural and they do fine without being misted. Check on them. You don't have to check on them at all. Some people don't. It's more, you check on them for you, not for them. So it doesn't hurt to check on them once a week or so. I check on mine every few weeks. So and I'll make videos about that whenever I do. Second is, do they tend to wake up around the same time each year? Yes, the individuals wake up. There will be a bit of a pattern usually. Like if I have a tegu that always wakes up mid-February, they'll probably continue to do that. And lastly, I've heard that young tegus don't always go down, or people would rather them stay awake instead. So what age do they start brumating? They can go down their first year, as we've discussed, but most don't. They typically start brumating their second winter alive. So not their first year, but their second year. So once they're a year old. Thanks. Love your videos, by the way. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Next question, will your tegu go down if kept indoors? Yes, they will. Also, does age of the tegu play a part in it? Yes, it can. We've discussed that already, and I'm sure, Daniel, you've already had your question answered previously. Good question. The next one is, should I worry if my tegu doesn't go down? Answer to that, not at all. So your Tegu can be perfectly healthy and never brumate at all in its life. So I would not worry about that. Would I do anything differently for cold weather areas like New York or New England? Not really. I mean, Tegus are gonna be inside. It's not gonna play a huge difference, but the Tegu could brumate at a different time schedule than someone, you know, down in Texas or Louisiana or Florida. So just keep that in mind. They may go down a month early, you know, so, and then stay down a little bit longer, but nothing to really do differently. Also, should we not handle him every day and just let him do his thing? That's a good question. It depends a little bit. I mean, if it's just a pet, you don't plan on breeding, then you can handle them a bit, but I would definitely keep it to a minimum and kind of let them do their thing. Hi, I have a 3-month-old and he hasn't been eating at all in about 2 weeks. His temps and stuff are fine, but didn't know if that's him getting ready. Should I stop putting food in with him? Didn't know if babies do it too. So as you know now, babies can definitely brumate, and if he hasn't eaten in 2 weeks, then I would put him down, let him brumate, stop feeding him, and you know, because he's not eating anyway, so might as well just stop feeding him and give him a little bit of time to brumate, and he'll be up before you know it. Good question. I live in northern Ohio and my Tegu is indoors. What do I need to do with him? I mean, if he's slowing down, then you'll just brumate him. So you can brumate him in the enclosure, that's totally fine. Once he goes down, he's burrowed down and doesn't come out for a few days, you know, then you can shut your lights off and let him sleep. Our adult Tegu is going through treatment for pinworm eggs diagnosed by the vet through fecal. Pan cure every 2 weeks, but he has definitely shown signs of brumation. Eating activity has decreased a lot. Rarely leaves the hide. Is it okay to try and keep him up eating to complete the initial treatment of doses in a 6-week span? Good question, tricky situation. I'm not a vet. I'm gonna just tell you to refer to your vet. You know, hopefully you trust your vet and he's a qualified exotic veterinarian. So if not, then I would definitely search for a new one. But you heard my comments earlier kind of on the same subject, and so I would be a little wary, but yes, I would keep your Tegu up, complete the treatment as per your vet's instructions. Our next question is, I have one baby hibernating and one that is not. Is there a way to safely get the second one down? He keeps coming out and wanting food. He's a month and a half old. So in this situation, I would prefer to have them not brumate their first year. And, you know, so what I would do is probably separate the one that is brumating and continue to allow the other one to not. Now, in order to do that, you would have to remove the one that's sleeping and kind of box them up and let them sleep. That's totally fine if you want to go that route. If you want to have the other one sleep, then you can start to change your lighting. So instead of being on for 12 hours a day, shorten it to 9 and see if that triggers anything. It may not, because a lot of babies don't brumate, but that would be my recommendation for you. Okay, our next question is, it says, great video, they're absolutely lovely, thank you. Let's say you've got a sickly Tegu and you don't think it could survive brumation. Is there a way to keep them from brumating? Yes, there is. You want to bump up those temperatures, keep your lights on, and keep them from burrowing down. So when they burrow down, you got to pull them out, offer them food, keep them awake. So it's tough. It takes a lot of hands-on, but it can be done. Are there any negative effects if you keep a healthy Tegu from brumating? Yeah, I wouldn't keep a healthy Tegu from brumating if it wants to. So if your Tegu wants to go down, just let it go down. It's natural. All right, camera's not behaving. Next one, I have a baby Tegu. It's her first winter. She wakes up every other day. I asked the breeder if I could feed her when she's out basking. He said yes. Is that going to be a problem? No, I would agree with that breeder. She's still coming out. She's still basking, even though it's every other day. That's typical for babies. They do like this semi-hibernation, brumation thing, so that's totally fine. Now, once she starts going down for more than a day at a time, I would possibly reduce my feeding with her or cut it off. But as of right now, you're on track. Sounds like your breeder gave you good advice. Next question is, my Tegu is in the middle of shedding and seems to be slowing down or going into brumation. Will she be okay? Yes, she'll be fine. So shedding or not, they can still brumate without any problem. So good question though. Hey Joe, Tegus with 3 to 4 months of life, do they brumate? They absolutely can. As we've been talking about, they can brumate at any age. Do they always make these nest when they brumate? Typically, yeah. I mean, they always find a nice cozy spot. They dig burrows or they use the substrate, the hay, whatever they have to build a nest. I mean, that's to insulate them and to help keep the temperatures consistent. If I want to breed my Tegus, do they both need to brumate or hibernate? Yes, if you want to have better odds of breeding your Tegus next season, then I would recommend brumating them. So those were all of the questions asked for this Brumation Together series. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and got your questions answered. I truly appreciate everyone so much being a part of this channel, part of this community. If you guys have any further questions, you can leave them in the comments below. If anything I said confused you, leave in the comments below and I will do my best at getting back to you and answering those questions. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe, like it, comment, you know, become part of the family. So thanks again, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.